Computer science. We're going to learn about the toString method today. So when you use system.out.println to print some data, it's pretty clear what prints, right? So if I say system.println 42, 42 prints out, or 3.14, 3.14 prints out, right? You pass some data to the system.out.println method, and it prints that data to the console. So what happens if you pass just some arbitrary object? If you've invented your own class and you've instantiated an instance of an object of your own class, what happens when you pass that object to the println method? What does it print? So here I've got a class. It's called ball. It has diameter and color. It's got a constructor. I'm telling it that its diameter is 3. I'm making an instance where the diameter is 3 and the color is white. What is going to print to the console? Think about it. Something like this. It's going to say ball at some numbers and letters. So that's weird. What are those numbers and letters? The numbers and letters are the reference address of the object B. So remember we talked about references. When I say new ball, it's creating an object, and that object goes in your memory. It's stored at a location. It has an address. That address is actually what's stored in that variable. So in this case, the variable B actually contains this value, ball at 146A568. And the computer uses that to look up the actual data that was the state of the object from the memory. So that's what gets printed. And if I create 2 instances of balls and I print both of those out, then we get 2 different reference addresses. So these balls are stored in different places in the memory. And each time I run this program, I might actually get different addresses because each time I run it, that ball is going to be stored somewhere else in memory. So it's going to have a different reference address. So that's something that happens. It's not super useful. You can tell the difference between 2 objects when you print them this way, but there's not really much useful information. We would really like when we print an object to get some useful information. And you can do that with a method called toString. So if you write this method, public string toString, and it returns a string, so you make it return some value. Now, when I try to print a ball, it's going to run the toString method, and it's going to print whatever that returns. So here, when I print B, it prints out this is a ball, and when I print B2, it prints out this is a ball, because that's what the toString method does. So that's cool. We can use the toString method to define what prints to the screen when we pass it to println. But in this case, now I can't tell a difference between my 2 balls, my baseball and my basketball, basically. They both print out this is a ball. So ideally, we will make the toString method customized for a particular instance of the object. And you do that by having it print out or having it return some data from the state. And you just use concatenation with some string literals and your instance variables to create what will eventually be unique to the instance of the object. So here I'm saying it returns the string diam::diameter. And when I do these print lines, when I printline B, it prints out diam:3. And when I print out B2, it prints diam:9. Because those are the values of the state of those objects when they were printed. And often we will actually make sure that this prints out all of your instance variables. So when you do this print, you do it for debugging reasons probably, and it will show you the whole state, all of the values of the instance of all of the instance variables of that object. And that's mainly what it's used for. And you can see on here, I just do a bunch of concatenation. It's a pretty straightforward method usually. And the big thing to remember is that toString returns a string. It does not print anything. It allows you to print just the object, and then what gets printed is the value that's returned by this method. But you never want to write system.println in the toString method. It just returns the string. So the syntax for this, it's pretty straightforward. It's a method. It's just a regular old method. It's just the name is important. So public string toString, capital S and string, toString. The parameter list is empty, so it's just parentheses with nothing in them. It's always exactly this. The toString method always looks exactly like this. And then it returns some string value that includes your instance variables concatenated together somehow. That makes sense to you when you're trying to see it, or matches the problem description that you're given. And that's toString. How do you invoke it? So you can just pass an object to the println method and it will automatically call the toString method for you. Or you can manually call the method using dot notation. So here b2.toString will call the toString method, get a string and print it out. Or you can always call the toString method and assign it to a variable. And that's toString. That's the whole thing. Declare a variable called toString in your class. It returns a string, and then you can either pass the object to println or manually call toString with dot notation. And that's it, toString. Biggest thing to remember, don't print in the toString method, just return a string. And that is computer science.